Hello and welcome to the Book of Leaves podcast. My name is Cara and I am your host. Hello and welcome to episode 41 of Book of Leaves. This episode I'm going to be chatting to McKinley, who is a co-founder of Pax Whole Food Goods and Eco Store, a shop in Westport in Mayo that of course sells whole foods and eco-friendly goods. And we'll be getting to know her a little bit, her journey, which I find really fascinating, and then of course how they went about setting up the shop, how COVID has impacted them, and eco-friendly tips for this Christmas and just life in general. So I hope you will enjoy. Today is also Pax's second birthday. It wasn't planned. I just messaged her a couple of weeks ago asking if she wanted to be on the podcast, and she said yeah, it could be good timing as well because their second birthday is coming up, which is today. So that works out really well. Happy second birthday to Pax, of course. And I hope you all enjoyed last week's, 2 weeks ago's episode with Laura. A lot of you guys found what she had to say really fascinating. And don't forget to write your letters to Green Santa. Get your kids or your nieces and nephews to write their letters to Green Santa and share it online about what they would like for Christmas for the planet. I'll tag Green Santa again just because it's Christmas time, of course, as anyone can see on YouTube. I'm wearing my fluffy Christmas hat. It's also extremely wintry right now, as I'm sure you're all experiencing. The condensation on my windows is fierce. It is -4 degrees. It is chilly, but that means an excuse for cups of tea, hot whiskey and mulled wine. So get yourselves a nice warm drink and sit back and relax and enjoy this interview. And just so you know, Pax is open at the moment. You can walk in, you can smell soaps and personal care items before buying them if you need to. They're also offering click and collect still, and of course the actual refilling side of the business is done completely by the staff. So yeah, they're really lovely business. We have so many eco-friendly businesses worth supporting in Ireland this Christmas. So if you're stuck for gift ideas for anyone in your family, shoot them a message, and honestly they're so helpful. So keep that in mind for your Christmas shopping. It's a funny Christmas this year, but as McKinley will go on to say, it's the year to treat ourselves if possible. I will let McKinley do the rest of the talking now, and in the meantime please don't forget to rate, review, share this podcast with a friend, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to review it there. It's really helpful. Thank you so much. And also quick thank you to anyone who messaged me about me being on their Spotify Wrapped. That's just so cool. It's weird. I'm still half convinced that it's just friends and family that listen to this. I can't get over it when it's people like outside my circle or people that I don't know. I just think that's unreal. So thank you all so much for listening to this. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. Like, it's thank you. Just thank you. Okay, it's great. Now, I do have a Patreon account and a Buy Me a Coffee account, buymeacoffee.com/Book of Leaves, patreon.com/Book of Leaves. That's where you can go if you are in a position to financially support the podcast regularly or once off. This will go towards the website hosting fees and the podcast hosting fees, and also the video editing app that I use and the picture editing app that I use for social media. Those are the 4 costly things involved. So if you're able to contribute towards those, I'd be greatly appreciative, and thank you so much to everyone who has already. Thank you. Now, I keep saying that's it, but this is really it. Okay, here's McKinley. I hope you guys enjoy. Happy second birthday again to Pax, and don't forget to follow them on social media for what they're doing for their birthday and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll catch you guys after. Enjoy. Hello, McKinley. Thank you so much for joining me on Book of Leaves. You are very welcome, and I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, to get straight into it, people will hear in a few moments that your accent is not exactly a native Irish one. So, you grew up in Kentucky, as far as I'm aware. So, I can't even imagine what that's like. I'm just so used to tiny little Ireland, and I was in America once, and my thought was, this is massive. Like, what was it like growing up in Kentucky? Can you tell us a little about that and about yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there are a lot of preconceived notions about Kentucky, even in the US. Yeah, so, the US is a big country and it feels like a lot of different countries in one. And yeah, so Kentucky would be, I call it the north of the South. It's towards the east, and it's kind of the northern border of the southern states of the US. And so, there's a lot of baggage with, we would have been kind of typified as being like backwards or hillbillies or rednecks and stuff like that. And it's interesting because I grew up outside of the largest city, Louisville, like in nature. So my parents had 10 acres of land, and they didn't farm themselves, but a lot of our neighbors would have been tobacco farmers.
Wow.
Historically. And so in my lifetime, that would have, when I was young, there was still a lot of tobacco farming activity, and it really, kind of started to die out as I was a teenager, as they, were trying to discourage people from growing tobacco. But then what I saw is then that was land that just went fallow, and people didn't have really any options to turn to. But Kentucky is also really famous as kind of horse farm country. So I was really involved in riding horses and training horses and cleaning up after horses for a long time when I was a young person. That was kind of my life. And my first career option would have been to be an equine veterinarian. And I worked for one for 2 years when I was between 14 and 16, and actually did quite a lot of surgery and, anesthesiology and things.
Whoa.
Informally. Yeah. So, and so I started university and studied a bit of science, and then decided I wanted to do something a bit more people focused.
That's amazing. So you grew up in the countryside. So were you aware of, say, the environment and environmental issues as well, or did you just appreciate nature that kind of way?
Yeah, I think it was more of an appreciation of nature. So as I said, my family didn't farm, but they kind of informally called it a tree farm. So it's wooded on three sides of where my parents built their house. And it was, I remember quite often that would have been the activity that I did with my younger brother, is just head off with the dogs and go into, walk along what we call a creek, a stream, and, just explore and pick up stuff. And my mom always had, we always kept a nature box. That was something that she was really big on. So we would pick up a lot of things outside and bring them in and put them in the nature box because they were interesting and different or whatever. And one time that led to us hatching about 1,000 praying mantis babies in the closet.
Oh my God, sorry, what?
Yeah, so one day we opened the kitchen closet, and out came loads of little mini praying mantis that we had to release outside.
Oh my God.
So, nature teaches you lots of things.
That's such a good idea. About the nature box, but of course, be aware that you might hatch a load of something in your box. That's so cool. That's such a good idea.
Yeah, but then green stuff, I don't know. I mean, Kentucky, the other thing about it is it's quite a conservative state. You know, it's part of the South. It's part of what they call the Bible Belt. And so, I wouldn't necessarily share the same political beliefs as my family. And it is, we were the family, though. My mom always was into recycling. We were the first people I knew, among my peers who, people used to joke they would come to our kitchen and there'd be 3 different bins for separating rubbish, far before it was the norm. And then my mom's a real reuser. She has always reused everything, and my dad would be like, would you just get rid of that, but she's, really committed to reusing things. But then, from a wider consciousness or broader consciousness from a political perspective, no, not so much.
That's fair. Okay, so then once you wanted to move on to something more people focused after doing science, so what did you end up doing then?
Well, yeah, then I was real confused for a bit. I guess I started university, and the nice thing about university in the US is you can be undecided when you start. You don't have to have a strictly defined path. You're not on a particular course. So I went to a large university, and I just, the first year I took quite a few science classes, thinking maybe I would go on to be a veterinarian, which you have to do 4 years of university and then another 4 years of vet school in the US for that. And I started taking also some humanities courses. And so I did, and I was required to take a foreign language, which I had only done Latin before. And so I chose Spanish in university. And that was kind of after my first year of university, I went to Haiti kind of on a trip to, help. And so we were helping, in an orphanage and, a lot of things that would, not, I might examine more critically now, but, we were helping down there. And that was my first time really outside of the US. And it was also the first time of, being a minority. And it was such a great experience to, to be among people who were really different from me and to hear people speaking language that I didn't understand. And it made me really think, oh gosh, there's a lot more to the world than I've been used to growing up in Kentucky. And I'd like to kind of learn more about that. So I got more serious about Spanish after that. And so then I did a summer in Mexico with a group of university students, and we kind of worked at a cafe and taught English lessons informally. And after that, then I really focused on, I switched my my kind of focus studies to Spanish literature and Latin American studies. And so that's what I focused on. And I did, some call it psychology and English literature. Because, in the US, it's a lot more like you can take lots of classes and learn, lots of things and then get a degree. So I focused on Spanish then, and I did a semester abroad in Mexico then where, I was the only foreign student, so it was a good immersion. Then immediately after university, I moved to Mexico. I taught English for a year in university and then moved back to the US for a really short amount of time and then went and worked for a tequila company in Mexico for 2 years.
Interesting. Okay. So we're currently working for a tequila company in Mexico and we're now in Westport in a zero waste shop. So I will link the dots eventually. Where did it come up that you ended up in little old tiny wet cold Ireland then after so many mad experiences? I loved Mexico, but it wasn't I guess it just wasn't a place that I was working in a job for a large company and I started working with a couple of the guys in the environmental area. And so we started, they hadn't been doing any recycling. So we started recycling both in the offices and at the production facilities. And then we started a green team of employees at both locations as well. And we started doing community outreach and I just loved it, but it wasn't something I was going to do forever. So it was, it was a great 2-year experience. I went back to the US for a really short amount of time. And then the company I was working for, I moved to Germany for what was supposed to be a 3-month assignment. And I ended up staying about 7 years in Hamburg. That's what Germany does to you. It's amazing. Oh my God, I love Germany. Oh, Hamburg is so amazing. Wow, 7 years there. Cool.
Yeah. But that's where then I met my Irish husband, and we, so our first daughter was born in Germany, and then we moved to Westport in, it's been nearly 4 years, and and so here we are. So after working remotely in Ireland for the company that I had tried to leave, for many years, trying to find something else, I finally, after my second maternity leave, it decided, I've got to do something else. I started looking into setting up the business, and at the same time, they thankfully reorganized while I was on maternity leave. And I said, great, I'll take redundancy. Thanks very much. And that's how I had some capital to start the business.
Oh my God, amazing. So that happened. Pax, we will now all have said in the introduction, but of course, second birthday today. So this was 2 years ago. So did you know Kirstin, the co-founder then before, or how did you come about meeting her?
Yeah, so when I first moved to Ireland, one of the things I noticed compared to Germany was the amount of packaging in supermarkets and also the limited options, especially for organic foods. And so the thing about Westport is there are some options for, you know, shopping locally. So there's always been a country market here in Westport, and Kirstin was selling at the country market. So she was kind of colloquially known as the seaweed lady, and she made products. So she sold different types of seaweed, but then she made breads and other things, granola from with seaweed in it. So, you know, she had a stand at the regular market. There were organic vegetable farmers, organic meat farmers, women making jams, you know, different things. So I would have been like a regular, you know, going every week. And we just, you know, started chatting, and that's how we kind of connected first. So, you know, it wasn't like a, you know, big long relationship or anything, but we did, you know, notice that we had similar interests and things.
Amazing. And had you, I guess, or your partner or Kirstin had any experience setting up, doing something like this before? Like you were just jumping in completely off the deep end?
Totally. I mean, I spent a lot of years, honestly, thinking about what else I would like to do. And I actually had taken a break from my company while I was living in Hamburg. I went and did a master's degree in London focused on labor, social movements and international development. So it was really about like how people work in the world. We read a lot about, you know, food production and how corporate entities control a lot of that. But because the large company that I worked for, I was in human resources always, but I would have had to work with finance people a lot. I got exposure to things. And so I thought, okay, you know, I have a bit of background, a bit of understanding about how things work, and just a real drive to do something totally different. And, you know, in the West also, it wasn't like I could easily switch jobs or find a different company to work for. You know, here, you know, people are here for the lifestyle, but there aren't always a lot of employment opportunities. And so, you know, a lot of people in this part of the world are doing their own thing out of necessity. You know, if you want to live here, you have to come up with something to support yourself. So, yeah, that was it kind of.
I'd say that was pretty like tough, but you're doing so well now. Is PAX the only kind of eco-friendly like whole food store in Westport, or were you kind of going into something pre-existing, or were you breaking a mold?
Yeah, no. So in Westport has a couple of, you know, the larger scale supermarkets and things like that. Yeah, I mean, and health food shops, but no kind of whole food things. And I'd actually talked to the local health food shop owner a few times about, you know, would she consider doing more kind of packaging free things or anything like that? And then she just didn't, you know, have the space or the capacity to do it. And so it was a little bit like, okay, you know, if I'm ready to make a change, then this, you know, there might be a good opportunity. And I had actually a friend of mine had invited me to a talk that a local teacher actually did at the Westport Town Hall. She was just telling people how she tries to live a zero waste life. And they had it originally scheduled for the upstairs room, which had a capacity for 30 people. And pretty soon they figured out there were a lot more than 30 people would come to hear the talk. And so they moved it to the main kind of theater room. And there were several hundred people who turned out to listen to this woman talk about zero waste. And so I kind of thought, wow, there might actually be enough people in this community just waiting for, you know, someone to do this. And then since then, we're not the only, so we're, you know, the kind of the largest shop in Mayo of its kind, obviously, but then there's a smaller shop in Ballina that does some packaging free goods. And then since we've opened, you know, there are a couple more in the West as well that have opened. And it's just because there is demand. There are loads of people looking for the opportunity to shop packaging free. And we would have customers, you know, from outside Mayo in normal times, you know, from surrounding counties, Sligo, Roscommon, Galway, Clare, who would travel to us occasionally, or if they know they're passing through Mayo, they would have their jars ready to stop in and, you know, refill. So yeah, it's been
That's amazing. And this is something both of us wanted to bring up as well, that when you compare it to Dublin, I mean, there's so many it gets a lot of press and attention because it's the capital, there's so many people here, and I guess, you know, like with any city, what progresses around the country probably progresses there first in ideas and whatever. So there's so many, I couldn't even count off the top of my head the eco-friendly businesses and shops there are in Dublin. So do you think there's like a perception that maybe it's not as needed in the countryside? Because my own view would be like there's some people in the country who are actually more clued in with nature. They're not doing it because it's niche or it's a bandwagon. They're doing it because it's either what they've always done, you know, with farmers markets, or, you know, they're used to it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we've learned over time, because it was hard for me to say even at the beginning, you know, who my customers would be. I kind of thought a customer would be, you know, similar to me, that there would be people, you know, around my age or in my situation, you know, young family, whatever, who, you know, is looking for some alternative. But we have customers from all walks of life, all ages, and that's what's really amazing. And, you know, we've seen people who, you know, came on the first day out of curiosity to check it out, like, what is this all about? And now, you know, we see them every week with a load of jars to refill. Yeah, I've got an extra jar this week, let's put something else in it. Or, you know, yeah, this is my first time refilling the cleaning products or whatever, but, you know, let's go for it, I'm ready to try it. And it's, you know, it doesn't happen overnight for everyone, but yeah, there is a lot of consciousness here. You know, the people who have lived here forever, absolutely, who are really connected to the land and, you know, see, you know, they're beach walkers, so they see the litter and they're picking it up all the time, or they're going out to the mountains and they see, you know, impact there as well. But then there are a lot of blow-ins too, who just feel really strongly about, like, this is a great place to live and, you know, we want to keep it that way. And so it's underestimated, you know, how many people we have just really committed to shopping like this, to supporting a business like ours, to lugging their jars in, you know, every time for their shop or whatever. You know, what we find in the West is people aren't nearly as active on social media. And so that's, you know, that's the thing, you know, that we don't have as many followers, but we do have such a loyal cohort of people. And, you know, that's the main thing is, you know, the community just absolutely embraced us. It's great.
That's so amazing to hear. And then I guess, how did COVID then affect you guys? And, you know, did you have an online shop before that, or did that force you to kind of move online? What was that like?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's been a whirlwind. I started the business 2 years ago when my youngest was 8 months old, and I'd obviously been setting up the business, you know, way before she was even 8 months old. And
that is extremely admirable, to say the least. I can barely like run a podcast with no kids and a part-time job, so well
done. I mean, it just, you know, it just had to happen, and it happened. But, you know, that's the thing is, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know anything. The business has just always been a bit, you know, it's been a lot going on, and, you know, growing and adding more products to the range. Although when we started, we kind of, you know, decided we're going to offer a really good selection of organic foods for people. And then what we've added are kind of more of the non-food products over time, although we started out with quite a lot of those as well. And so, you know, things were going well. We were building the business quite well, you know, reaching out, expanding. You know, last year I would have done a lot of events with different groups to talk about the shop, to talk about zero waste, to talk about reusing. And so, you know, there were things lined up for this year that went away. And, you know, at the start of COVID, it was just so funny because, you know, we knew things were coming, but, you know, without having any kind of clarity as a business, you don't know how to react until you have to react. And so we kind of decided to stop letting people in before the lockdown happened, because we noticed, you know, customers being uncomfortable, and also the nature of our refill shop. You know, people are moving around, people are touching a lot of different things, because we would have let customers do it all themselves. You know, it was a big shock. And we had one employee who actually went on maternity leave a bit early because she, you know, just didn't feel very comfortable, and, you know, we just didn't know what to do. And so initially then during lockdown, we said, okay, you know, we're still open. We're just not letting people in. We'll do all of your filling for you. So bring your jars. But then if you don't feel comfortable, if you just want to order, then email us an order. But then, you know, it wasn't even 2 weeks of people emailing orders. We're like, this is just not going to work, because, we were getting orders that said, chickpeas, rice and whatever. And it's like, well, what type of rice? We have 6 different types of rice, how many grams, those kind of things. And so then it was just a big rush to get the website up first for locals to kind of click and collect, and it just to be more efficient for us to have an order to look at and know exactly what people wanted. But then also to kind of cater to the people that I mentioned earlier would travel from around to visit us and still wanted to be able to have food, in better packaging, because obviously if we're shipping it, we put it into paper bags, food safe paper bags instead of plastic packaging. But then, people could also order, but it's worked really well. And, recently the online orders have picked up obviously for Christmas, and, people are a lot more conscious about, finding things that are handmade by local people. So we have a big personal care range, and except for one toothbrush or one brand of toothpaste that's, from England, nearly all of, I don't buy personal care items from, other countries, because there are just a number of amazing people in Ireland making, face creams and hand balms and lotion and even, exfoliation and bath salts and everything. Like, that stuff doesn't need to be imported. There are just amazing people using really great natural and organic ingredients.
Amazing. So now people like all across Ireland can shop online at PAX as well.
That's right. Yeah.
That's so cool. Well done on that. Now moving towards, I guess, the time of year that it is, and you set up this eco-friendly store. So have you got any tips for people, either as a parent, because you've got 2 little ones yourself, but general tips for people that you adopt at Christmas time, or even just general your personal favorite like eco-friendly things to do?
Perfect. So it's, this is a hard year, and we're feeling it, like we, as a business and just as individuals, we've had to adapt to so many changes this year. And so one of the things that we kind of decided in our family is we're going to make it just special. Like, we're going to treat ourselves a bit more. And that's the thing, about eco-friendly is you don't have to deprive yourself. Like, we sell a lot of stuff packaging free, but a lot of it is really delicious chocolate made in Ireland and stuff like that. You can still have a great time, and eat really delicious things. It just doesn't have all the packaging on it. And so we kind of we started decorating for Christmas a little bit earlier, and we just only use secondhand decorations. I got a lot from my mom. She saved some from my childhood and gave them to us. And then we've been making some, and we've done some decorations, that we sell. So, a 3D little Christmas tree. And so the girls got to decorate that, and we're going to use it as kind of our little Advent calendar space. So we'll put little things next to it. So when I say we're treating ourselves, we're going to, make kind of gifty things for each other, ideas for, here's a coupon to spend time with, one of us one-on-one as kind of, one parent, one child, special time, and then, other activities, and, just little delicious bits. My girls really, if anything, they just, they're really happy with hot chocolate and popcorn. So,
me too.
That's
Great
something,
choice.
that's, we can do tokens for those kind of things. And they just really like any kind of, crafty things. One of the things recently, my husband actually found a big bag of marbles he had when he was a kid, and they were delighted with that. So I'm just, we're just trying to think creatively about things, that excite us and make us feel good without having to go out and buy something new. So that's kind of one tip I would have. And then the other one, there's a lot of talk about like wrapping and stuff like that. Some people, say, I really want to use, wrapping paper, so I'll just use brown paper and recycle it. That's fine. We don't sell it in our shop. We've just partnered with a local maker who makes pouches and wrapping out of vintage linen. So we sell those as an option. And they're just really beautifully done, handmade. Some of them are hand stamped and things like that. But you don't even have to do that. I mean, most people, like I would have had a collection of like kind of vintagey scarves that I'd picked up at flea markets when I lived in Germany and stuff like that. And those make a great way of wrapping gifts, and they're really unique and individual. And then, one tip I have for parents is it's just kind of a mental shift. But I grew up in a house where when Santa Claus brought us presents, none of them were wrapped.
Same.
And so that is my biggest tip, because I'm like, Santa doesn't have to wrap the presents. You can just put them under the tree.
Yeah. And I also, as a child, like, I remember walking in, and when you see what you get, like, my parents got the, you know, the actual wow on their face. It's not like the amount of presents or the size of them. It's the fact that you can actually see the bike or, you know, the books or whatever, and you saw it all at once. So yeah, I think Santa, to be honest, really, like, needs to stop wrapping
all those presents, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good tip. And I guess more generally speaking then, with two little ones, did you try the kind of like cloth nappy route?
Oh yeah, cloth nappies. We still have, so the youngest is still in cloth nappies. We're still trying to convince her to to ditch them, because we've used them for now, you know, many years. Yeah, I did. I was kind of committed to that. Even before my first was born, I had a couple of friends and a relative who had used them. And so I asked all the questions and whatever. And we've done it. And, you know, it is a bit of commitment. I'm not going to lie. Like, we do extra washes every week because we have to do a load of nappies, you know, at least twice a week. But it is, you know, you get in the rhythm, definitely. And that makes a good Christmas present, or, you know, baby shower gift or whatever, to, you know, because it is it's a bigger upfront investment, but it's cheaper, absolutely, in the long run, especially if you might have more than one kid. Mm-hmm. You know, once you get into it, you know, like, everybody in the household has to do nappy duty and stuff. Like, even the girls help. We air dry them on drying racks, you know, because we have a bit of space for that. So they'll, you know, take down the cloth wipes and put them into piles and stuff like that. You know, they love to help. So yeah, that's an option, and I'm always happy to talk about it. You know, I'm definitely the one in the shop who will talk about cloth nappies and reusable menstrual goods. You know, all of the really fun things.
Yeah, well, that's good. No, that's good, because you have I know I had an episode on reusable menstrual stuff recently with Augustina, but you have pants as well as cups. Scotland has recently made period products free, which is amazing, but I haven't actually looked into, have they made like reusable ones free as well?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure about that either. And, you know, the biggest problem in places is, you know, like Ireland, that there's still the highest VAT rate, 23% on things like menstrual cups and period pants, because they're just not, you know, there's the wording is not right in the legislation, you know. So we hope to do some campaigning around that. There's also it's an offshoot of The Voice Ireland. They have at No Plastic Period, and we'll be doing a giveaway with them. They've created kind of reusable menstrual good education for secondary school students, and they'll be doing their pilot program starting next month, I think, in Mayo, which is really exciting.
That is so exciting. There's another project actually that you're part of that I wanted to ask you about, is the Edible Landscape project. Yeah, so I've never talked about that on this podcast, I don't think. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so I am I'm just a member supporter, you know, pretty active, and do meet with the board. And so it's an organization that focuses on edible landscapes. So they've done over the years a lot of planting of trees in and around Westport that, you know, are either fruit trees or nut trees, where people can, you know, engage with, you know, this is a tree that will grow. It will, you know, provide a lot of benefits to both the community and to nature, but it's also something that we can engage with, as in, you know, eat from and things like that. And so, you know, through the act of planting a tree or other edible species, people learn about how to eat seasonally, how to eat locally, how to support biodiversity, and, you know, just how to think about how their food choices also impacts the environment. So that's it in a nutshell, basically.
Yeah, and do they host kind of like talks online, or is there anything kind of online at the moment?
Yeah,
or
there are a couple of episodes of a podcast online, although that's not the main focus. It was a bit of a side project. And then I think online there is, we did a big event last year on food and climate change. And I think that the audio is available online. I'll check that for you. But yeah, it was a really interesting event because we had local farmers. We also had a local GP who talked about, the impact of, really nutritious food on, and she talked actually about a plant-based diet for health and the environment. And then there were other specialists on biodiversity also speaking. And so, yeah, it was a really great event. We had, and the Westport Town Hall is hosting all kinds of great events. So we had really good turnout for that as well. And then the Edible Landscape Project is really, gearing up to do a lot more planting, starting in Mayo and then hoping to go nationally. So getting communities involved. But they did planting, kind of earlier this year, right before lockdown at a local secondary school. So the teachers and students were involved in that.
Yeah. Well, I'll link it in the show notes anyway, and then anyone who wants to learn from them can check it out, or if they want to get involved, they can get in touch, hopefully. When I hear edible landscape, my brain goes to Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory in his room where like everything is edible. But like I talked about before with Mary Reynolds, there is a such thing as like a forest garden. That's so amazing. And I guess before we close off, I always ask people how they kind of like to deal with the pressures of the world. I can only imagine as well, you're also, from America. So, we get stressed about American politics. So I can't imagine how it feels for you. So I guess like, what was that like for you actually? Are you able to vote from over here?
Yeah, I did vote. Yes, I did vote. Yeah, so as long as you're an American citizen, you can vote. You have to register in advance and all of that stuff. And depending on your state, I had to actually physically print it out, fill it in, and post it back. We all heard about the postal ballots and things like that. But yeah, I did my part, although Kentucky, always votes a little bit differently than I would like. A lot differently. Yeah. But how do I try to tune out? I mean, there's for me also growing up as an American, and you hear kind of the level of discussion that happens there. In the US, the political is personal and the personal becomes political, and so for me, I grew up in a family, we would have quite different views on a number of things. And so in a lot of ways, there's my focus first is on maintaining a relationship with my family, not letting politics, ruin that, but doing what I can, from afar. But, in a lot of ways, like this year, it's easy when you're just kind of worn out and don't know what to do to find yourself scrolling. And I've just decided that's not helpful for me or healthy. So I try to focus on other things, listening to podcasts such as this one that are informative, that give us great things that we can do to make a difference. I think that's it, is just trying to maintain, positive action. And in the first lockdown, when we had nice weather, it was really always about getting out every day. So we live actually outside of Westport. We have about an acre, so it's, we have a bit of space, and we're just trying to, really spend time outside with our kids growing whatever we can. And also we're replanting. So this acre, quite a lot of it was just kept as a big lawn, and there's no reason for it, especially because, in the last couple of weeks, it's been raining torrentially most days here, and it's like a bog, quite a lot of the year. And so what we've done over the last few years is just, every year put in more trees. So this year we planted another 25 alders to soak up more water. And so now I think at this point we've planted about 150 trees over 3 years, that's the one thing I'm like, okay, there I can see something really positive right in my front garden.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, and when I say trees, we plant them really small, bare-rooted whips, that's the cheapest option, but year on year, they're growing, and, we can see that. And, I'd say by next year, the biggest planting that we did the first year it'll feel very kind of foresty by the time the trees are a bit bigger. So yeah.
That's so lovely. Yeah, so good advice for people to tune out and plant trees.
Yeah.
That's what you can always do. Have you any plans for your second birthday?
We do, yeah. We'll be doing some giveaways. We'll be doing some kind of features to say, so we have at the moment 5 members of staff, and we'll be talking about kind of our favorite products and things like that. So we'll be covering the food sections and the non-food sections, and we'll be, talking about some of the suppliers we worked with from the very beginning, because, for 2021, we're just doubling down on, really working with Irish suppliers. So yeah, with another two women, so they're called Four Hands Food Studios. So they're based in with me. We've kind of pre-ordered with them from a farmer who will be growing some beans for us this year, some beans and peas. So, those are the kind of initiatives, is to really start to see how can we influence, farmers to say, well, we can sell this much in a year. Would you be able to produce these things? So they're just to support kind of organic growing in Ireland as well. And then just continue to, work with smaller makers and things. So
Definitely.
trying.
Well, I'll be sure to share some of those things online. Thank you so much, McKinley. I love chatting to you. Thank you for giving me your time, and also thank you for listening to the podcast. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, same for us. We really appreciate you having us on, and we'll continue to support what you're doing, because I've learned a lot just listening. Even the last interview you did with Laura was super fascinating.
Oh wow, I know. Yeah, another superwoman. I have so many superwomen on this podcast, and you're one of them. So thank you so much, and happy second birthday.
Thanks, Sarah.
Now, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with McKinley and were able to take a leaf or two from her book. One of the things that I'm going to be doing is the nature books. I think that's so cool, but obviously try to avoid hatching thousands of tiny creatures inside. As McKinley said, if you have any questions about eco-friendly products, especially the ones like cloth nappies or menstrual products, she is the one to ask. She's so helpful. Shoot them a message on Instagram. They actually sent me a pair of Wooka pants. I think that's how you say it, Wooka. These reusable menstrual pants, which I'll be reviewing and sticking that up on social media. So thank you again so much for those pants, McKinley. And that is it, I think. Don't forget to give them a follow. Support your local eco-friendly store. They're open for business at the moment, and the staff are doing all the refilling, so it's super safe. But you can still go in, walk around and smell the nice smellable things and whatnot before you buy. So I'm very jealous of people in Mayo that get to visit Pax, and I can't wait for the day where I go on my trip to Climb Kirkpatrick, and I will absolutely pop in to Pax as well. So I look forward to meeting them in person. And I think that is everything. As always, please get in touch if you have any requests or suggestions for topics or people on this podcast. And yes, sign up to my Patreon for monthly newsletter updates on what I'm doing, and also what past, present and future interviewees of the podcast are up to, any kind of news there. And I think that's it. Thank you again so much for listening. Stay safe, wrap up warm, and I will be back with you in 2 weeks' time to listen to our last podcast episode of 2020, where we can say goodbye, good riddance to this year. That's it. So go forth, give your eco-friendly businesses some love this Christmas, and give yourself some love. You deserve it. I love you. Okay? Honest to God. These are all great. That's it. Okay. Mind yourselves. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Bye.